Hello, everybody. Welcome to 7 Tips for Getting Started with Agile. My name is Eric Lindgren. I'm an Agile coach at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I'm going to share with you some of my experiences from the past 10 years. First of all, I want to talk about why do we use Agile methods? And in my experience, it's been because they help teams become excellent. So we like to see that teams are self-organizing and motivated, and Agile methods help with that. We want better engagement with users and stakeholders, and Agile methods help with that. And then we want these rapid feedback loops that Agile creates in order to get feedback on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and figuring out ways to improve our process and our product. So those are the main reasons for using Agile. So let's see what Agile is. First of all, a little background on myself. I've been using Agile methods for the past 10 years, and you can see some other credentials just to show you that I know what I'm talking about. But let's see if I can also tell a good story. And the story starts in 2001 with the Agile Manifesto. 17 people got together in a lodge in Utah and tried to come up with ways of improving software development at that time. It was very difficult to get software out quickly. And so they came up with the Agile Manifesto, which I encourage you to read. We're not going to go over it now, but you have both the manifesto and the 12 principles that they came up with in that meeting. And it actually started a revolution in the software industry. What we do now is very different from what we did in 2001. And whether you say you're doing Agile or not, you are probably using a lot of these Agile principles in your software development. Now, this isn't just for software development. We're finding that business teams are also benefiting from these methods, especially Kanban. Kanban is one way of becoming Agile. Scrum is another method for becoming Agile. There's lots of different ways of being Agile, but Kanban is a great way for business teams also to align on their goals and see progress and organize themselves. So we'll talk a little bit about both Kanban and Scrum. If you want to read one single book about Agile, I recommend The Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time by Jeff Sutherland. Jeff Sutherland was one of the two people who developed Scrum during the 90s and really popularized it in the 2000s. So let's get started. The 7 tips I have for you are the daily stand-up, Kanban board, retrospectives, stakeholder reviews, hierarchical backlog, collaboration tools, and mission statement. We'll go through all of these briefly, and each one has a link to more information. I've set this up in a Kanban board so that I can demo how this would be done. The left side is our backlog, and we will move things from left to right as we work on them. And normally I would get input from you, the stakeholder, on what do we want to talk about and in what order. But because this is pre-recorded, I've had to establish that order myself. So here we go. We'll start with the daily stand-up. The daily stand-up is a way for the team to get synced up in the morning or at some point during the day, once a day, 15 minutes or less. And the key is to keep it to 15 minutes or less so that it doesn't interfere too much with people's schedules. And each team member reports on what I did yesterday, what I'm going to do today, and what are my impediments. What this does is it helps the team coordinate with each other and make sure that they're working on the highest priority items and that they are collaborating in the best possible way. A lot of times in a daily stand-up, you find out that, oh, you're working on something that I thought I was going to work on. So, hey, let's talk about it. So you try to keep this meeting short If there's other people involved who are not in the team, you don't let them talk until after the meeting. So usually what I do is I schedule the meeting for 30 minutes. We keep the stand up to 15 minutes. If everybody's done in 15 minutes or less, then we just get back to work. If there are other discussions that need to be had, or if there are other people involved who want to talk, then they can talk after the daily stand up. So that way you have both the short time limit for the daily stand up and the expanded time afterwards to allow for other conversations between the people who need to be there, not the whole team. And I want to point out two things. One is that these titles have links to more information about each item that we talk about. So this is a link to the Scrum Guide where they talk about the daily Scrum. And I also want to mention that all of these methods are for teams of 10 people or less. And if your team grows to 12 or 15 people, you want to consider breaking it up and doing something called scaling Agile, which is a whole different topic. There's one reference at the end of the presentation to the scaled Agile framework, but there's a whole slew of different ways of scaling Agile, but just realize that this presentation is about teams of 10 people or less. So that was a little bit about the daily stand-up. And let's take a look at another Kanban board. The Kanban board is a way for us to visualize the ongoing work of the team. As a self-organizing team, everybody needs to know what the other people are working on, and the Kanban board is a great way to keep that visual and transparent. So on the left, we have all the stuff that we know we need to do. We keep that prioritized so that the top items, the top priority items are at the top. And then as we finish our work, we put it in the done column and we pull from that top of that column and that left column and put it in doing. In the doing column, you want to limit your work in progress. So you set limits for the team so that they can be the most effective. Each team has to decide how they're going to do that, what their work in progress limit is in order to stay effective. But usually you want to limit how many things that people are working on simultaneously, because it does limit their effectiveness. So that's one of the concepts that goes along with Kanban. I would recommend that you click on the link and learn more about Kanban. But this is the basics of it. A visual board where you limit your work in progress, visualize the work of the team, and then you collect metrics over time about how long it takes you to do things. And that way you're able to predict your performance and improve your performance. So that's the basics of Kanban board. And then let's go to retrospectives. Now the retrospectives here are based on the retrospectives concept from Scrum, but retrospectives come in many different flavors. You may have heard of postmortems. That's the same thing. Basically in Scrum, what we talk about is we want to get together to discuss what went well, what didn't go well, and what do we want to do differently in the next upcoming period. And so this is a way for the team to self-improve. We discuss things that have happened and figure out ways of making them better. And there's a reference to a book here, Agile Retrospectives, Making Good Teams Great. This has a variety of different techniques on how to do it, but you can be effective just with this basic technique. And this is one of the best ways to make your team better, is to at least once a month, maybe more often, have a retrospective to see how your team can improve. That was retrospectives. And let's talk about stakeholder reviews. Stakeholder reviews in Scrum are called sprint reviews, and it's a way for teams to demonstrate what they're working on to their stakeholders. So every month or more often, you have a regularly scheduled meeting with your stakeholders, and each team member demonstrates what they've done in the past month. Now, this has several effects. One is that your team members stay motivated because they know at the end of the month, they have to demonstrate something to the stakeholders. And the stakeholders get a chance to see what you're working on and give feedback on it. And then that feedback goes back into your product backlog, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And it informs what are the priorities and what are the adjustments we need to make to what we're doing based on the stakeholder feedback. So this is one of the key things you can do with your team to help them stay motivated, get input from stakeholders, and improve your product that you're creating. And so speaking of the backlog, let's talk about a hierarchical product backlog. The hierarchical product backlog is a slightly more advanced topic because what we normally talk about is a product backlog, a straight list of things that need to be done for the team to create the product in a prioritized order. And every time we do planning, we look at the product backlog and we say, what's the most important thing? And we work on that next. So that's your straight backlog. You can use any tool that lists items to create your backlog. I'm going to talk about tools in a minute, but the straight flat backlog is your basic concept in Scrum and Agile to help you list the things that need to be done. The hierarchical backlog is an improvement over just a flat backlog in that you get different views of the work that's being done. So at the bottom level, you have the work that the team is doing. It's broken down into what we normally call user stories, and they are chunks of work that can be done in a few hours or up to a couple days. You don't want them to be much bigger than a few days of work. But then all these user stories roll up to create some kind of feature. And so the next level up is the feature level. And this is where the stakeholders are going to be more interested in seeing what are you creating at the feature level? What are the important things that I need to pay attention to, that this is what you're creating? Because most stakeholders don't care too much about the details of what the team is doing, but they do care about how are these features looking. So this gives you a way of showing the progress at the stakeholder level. And then at the top level, we call these epics, and the epics are for longer running goals, and maybe you can either have quarterly or even yearly goals up there, just long running concepts that you can group the features under. So every team, again, will have their own way of breaking down the hierarchical backlog based on their needs, but it's something that really helps you with the defining the product and showing your progress. Just a note about Scrum, we have in Scrum, the product owner is the person who manages the product backlog and owns the product backlog. And so they are a key player in defining what it is that the team is creating, but then the team takes the product backlog and they decide how they're going to do the work. So that was the product backlog. And then let's look at a few collaboration tools that we can use in Agile. So we don't need all of these tools. We just need one of them, really. And I've given you a wide variety of them. So for example, Azure DevOps is an end-to-end development environment that has both code and requirements and Kanban boards and all kinds of stuff built into it. So very complex tool, but if you just focus on the work item part of it and the Kanban boards, it's very useful even at a personal level or a team level, even if you're not using the code. So this is my favorite tool. This is what I've been using since 2006. Different names for it, but it's currently called Azure DevOps. If you want to talk about simpler tools, Trello is a simpler tool for creating Kanban boards or even just personal lists of to-dos. I use that in my personal life whenever I have something that I think, oh, I need to do that. I just put it on my Trello list in my phone. But you don't even need any special tools. You can use Google Sheets. You can use a spreadsheet. There's lots of different tools that you can use to do some of these methods. Jira is a very popular tool, and so is version 1. And then we have a new tool called Kanbanchi for Kanban. So there's more than just this, but this gives you an idea of the different tools that you can use for using these methods. And what it does is it allows you to have collaboration online, and it generates metrics for you. And then you can also do graphical visualizations in these tools. So really good for demonstrating your progress to your stakeholders. All right, and last but not least is the mission statement. And the mission statement should actually come first. This link here is to a book called Start With Why. You want people to know why they are coming to work. What is it you're creating? That's listed in your product backlog, and how you do it, that's what you decide with the team, and how you improve is what you get out of your retrospectives. But the mission statement clarifies why the team even exists. So it's a very important tool for keeping people motivated. Here's an example from Tesla. To accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Now, this is a car manufacturer, and if I'm just a factory worker, I may not have that much engagement to a bigger picture. But if I know that the mission statement of the company is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, it gives me a feeling of purpose every time I come to work. You know, I could be screwing on bolts every day, and I would feel happy that I am helping the world's transition to sustainable energy, if it's something I believe in, of course. If I don't, I probably don't work there. At PwC, we decided on a mission statement of create great digital products to solve important problems. And that helps our teams, when they come to work every day, know that this is what we're doing. We are trying to create great digital products that solve important problems for the company and society. So it really helps people stay motivated. Well, that's it. Daily stand-up, Kanban board, retrospectives, stakeholder reviews, hierarchical backlog, collaboration tools, and mission statement. These are the things that I recommend for getting started with Agile. But there's lots more to learn about Agile. So if you feel like talking to me, I will be hanging out after this presentation, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I am also trying to collect all of my experience and put it into a website. So feel free to visit that. That's a work in progress. I will announce it on LinkedIn when I feel like it's ready, but there's stuff there that you can benefit from, including this presentation. So feel free to visit thevirtualteamcoach.com. Now here are a list of the references that I've used. So you can take a picture of this. There's one more page. I'll give you a second. And here's another one. And feel free to connect with me. Thanks, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.